Hi everybody, this is Joey Remenyi from seekingbalance.com.au. I'm absolutely thrilled today to be interviewing one of my past clients who I haven't actually seen in quite a while. And I want to introduce you to Danielle, who graduated from my Beautiful Balance course around a year ago. So Danielle, welcome and thank you so much for checking back in and being here.
Thanks for having me. It's really good, really good.
Yeah, so the last time Danielle and I crossed paths was actually in person on a writing retreat in a totally different set of circumstances.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely beautiful because Danielle was able to be with a whole group of people with all this new stimulation away from home, focusing in on creativity. And in that situation, she was like, I've recovered from a chronic dizziness condition. I thought I would never get through it. And here I am, I'm really back to normal. I have my life back. And so I was said to Danielle, case study. And here we are. So Danielle, if you rewind the clock back
Yeah.
to the onset of your symptoms, what was going on for you in your life and where you were emotionally in the process, do you want to just share with the listeners a little bit about your diagnostic pathway and that the beginning process?
Yeah, sure. So I'd had dizziness for a long time and done nothing about it and just kept pushing through. Had lots of experiences where like I'd hit the doorknob or I'd hit the edge of the wall. I was driving along feeling like I shouldn't be driving. I really can't focus. This is dumb. This is serious. So I started to get lots of different medical interventions. The first was the ENT, and there was nothing that they found nothing wrong there,
Mm-hmm.
which I was really disappointed because I really wanted it just to be fixed and it to go away because I was really busy with worrying about everybody else at the time. I went through about 4-year period where both my parents died, and I was the sole caregiver. So I was the person that had to make all the medical decisions and put them into care and do all these things that were not wanted but had to be done, and virtually, organise their lives and pack up their lives, etc.
And in that 4-year period, did that overlap with the onset of the
Yeah,
symptoms you were kind of ignoring and pushing through with because it was all about mum and dad and
yeah.
yeah.
And it was just like I was just getting so many other little niggly things, and I just put the dizziness down to that as well. I was just tired. I'm just tired. I'll keep going. I'll keep pushing through. And then it just got worse and worse, and so I decided to find out what else I could do. So I went to I was back and forth to my GP and also the pharmacist, because I had, at the same time, I had other chronic conditions. I had this really weird swallowing thing that happened about the same time. And I had some markers in my blood that were showing that perhaps I would have an autoimmune disease. So I kept thinking, oh, well, this is all part of it. This is all part of it. And so I was back and forward to the pharmacist as well, saying, would this tablet, because they were giving me tablets for these other things, would this be making me feel dizzy? And she's like, no, not really. It couldn't really make you feel dizzy. And so I was putting it down to other things all the time, kept pushing it through. And then we went on a big holiday to Europe, a big sailing holiday. And it was the last thing I wanted to do because I was so dizzy all the time. It was all the time. And I had pretty much decided not to do anything. I'd taken myself out of all social groups. I'd given up the gym. I'd decided not to do a majority of things that involve lots of people and loud noise and things like that. And then we were going on this sailing holiday, and it really was not what I wanted to do, but it was my husband's dream, and we were going with a whole group of his sailing friends, and so off I went. Well, it was horrific, and we were in this most blissful situation in the Mediterranean, sailing around, and I was just dizzy all the time. And I didn't even, I didn't take any notice of myself even. So I probably was a real wet blanket as well, because I was really trying to avoid things and trying to avoid being on the boat if we didn't have to be. And then we'd get to a beautiful place and there'd be heaps of nature walks and things, and I didn't want to do those either. I was really not myself at all. So when I came back from that I had convinced myself I had MS by then. So
Yep.
all these other symptoms and all these other problems that I had MS. So I decided to have an MRI. So I pushed my doctor for an MRI, and they found that I had 2 collapsed discs in my back. And I said, oh, so would that be making me feel dizzy? Oh, not necessarily. So I was hopeful that it was. And I had big back surgery, and it was magic, and a lot of the pains and everything else went away. Um, and I still had these other underlying things, but it just kept going. And in the process of the back surgery, I had to have rehab. I had to go to rehab. So I did a lot of balance exercises and things like that in my recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that, oh, this actually makes me feel a bit better. So I thought it was to do with my back, but once that finished, and I was doing a lot more, because part of the recovery is you had to walk everywhere. You weren't allowed to drive. You weren't allowed to sit down for very long. So I was walking everywhere and doing everything, and I was getting dizzy again. And I thought, well, I'll go back to those balance exercises I was doing in rehab. So I was back doing them at home. And then a friend of mine, her son's a physio, and she said to me, well, it sounds like if you just had some general physio care, like someone watching you, that you could get over that again, like you did when you were doing your rehab. So I went to the physio, and he gave me different exercises and said, look, there's really nothing wrong. Your neck is really stiff. You're holding your head strange, which I knew I was, because I was like, as I talked, I wouldn't move my head because that would set it off. Or, I knew I was doing some strange things. So I tried with all the exercises, and eventually I went back and said, look, it's just not doing anything. He goes, yeah, you're right. You're not, like, there's no improvement as far as he could tell. Just even with me walking heel to toe, I wasn't any better. I was still wavering over the room, and, and I was still doing things like banging into the doorways, and it was actually probably getting worse, if not better. And then, yet my physical problems were improving. So,
and did you ever see a neurologist? So I know you saw the ENT.
yeah. So then I went back to, after the physio, he said, look, I think you need someone that specializes in this. I think it's perhaps a neurologist. So I went and did all this research about it online, because my GP was like, well, what's a neurologist going to do? There's nothing wrong with your brain. And I was like, well, maybe it is, and because I think because I raised the red flags and said to him, I've got MS, I need an MRI. I think he thought, oh, she's a nutcase. So I eventually found out myself. I went to the GP and said, here, I want a referral to this guy. Schmelowitz, his name was.
David Schmulowitz.
Yes.
He's a colleague of mine, a beautiful doctor who does specialize in this stuff.
Absolutely fantastic. And I went through all the testing that he does in his office.
Mm-hmm.
He said, look, yep, I think that we need to do further testing. So I had to go back to the I&E hospital, and by that stage I couldn't drive. So I live in the country, and so I had to get a bus and a train into the city to get there. And I didn't know what I was in for, but by the end of the day, I felt like I'd been in a washing machine. I was just so dizzy. It was just ridiculous. I should have had someone drive me. I don't even know what I was thinking. I was thinking that maybe I would go there and he'd go, okay, do this, do that, you'll be fine. I didn't look into what it would be like, but there was
probably still had that little bit of hope that there was a quick fix and there was a magic cure, and if you just saw the right expert, that everything would fall into place.
Yeah. And he just seemed so knowledgeable and like so calm and everything. And I was like, yeah, all the staff were just so like, okay, so now we're going to do this if it was an everyday thing and it's going to fix me. Anyway, it didn't, of course. It made me much worse. And then the next time I went back to see him, he goes, yeah, guess what? You've got vestibular migraine. There's really not much we can do about it. You can try these exercises. I said, well, I've done all that. And he said, yeah, I can see that. He goes, but maybe try a specific physio that specializes in it. So I did that. He gave me a few more tablets, which I think just made me worse, made me even more prepared to stand apart from the world, because I was blocking things off.
Yeah, everyone's different. Some people with those meds respond quite miraculously. Like some people everything clears up and they're just like, oh wow, it's like a cloud's lifted. And for other people it's like a cloud's set in and they're foggy and they're tired and they withdraw. So it's very case by case with the medications.
Yeah, and I was very, very foggy, and I was working on a big project at the time, and I just didn't need that. It was my last thing that I needed, so I was tempted to just stop taking them, actually. But I went to this specialist physiotherapist and got exactly the same exercises. I don't know why it would be any different, but I sort of thought, well, I better believe, do what he says. And I probably did about 3 sessions, and I said to her, look, this isn't working. She goes, no, it's not, is it? And I was like, why am I doing this? Like, even just driving there, it was a fair drive for me. And it was a big effort for me to get there and get back and then feel exhausted from that. And I just was like, oh, I think I'm better off doing just the balanced things I was doing when I did rehab and just staying at home and being quiet and doing my walking.
So at this point, you've been through 4 years or so.
Yeah.
And really in that 4th year, it kind of sounds like you were at those dead ends. You're trying all these avenues and it's just dead end, dead end, dead end, dead end. What now?
Yeah.
What shifted for you when you decided to look beyond that physical part of traditional treatment, which is medications and physiotherapy and exercises and diet?
Yeah.
What prompted you to start going, okay, what's the mental, emotional, spiritual story going on here?
Well, so yeah, I forgot to mention I did make a lot of changes to my diet, and that was something that David was very, very positive with. So cut out coffee, cut out lots of different foods and things. So at around that time, I had a cancer diagnosis, and so what happened there was I'd went through several surgeries, and I actually came out of them really well, and I felt really positive and like I was just going to beat it. And then I had a big surgery scheduled for the following year. And after having had those, because with all the different things you have, what's the word? Where they knock you out. What's the word?
Anesthetics?
Anesthetic, yeah, sorry. You have anesthetic. And I thought, okay, the anesthetics really knocked me around, and that's why I'm dizzier again. But I'm determined to not be this, cancer patient. I'm really sad, I'm really sick. I guess I watched everyone else do it. I didn't want to be like that. I wanted to be, okay, this is how you do it. I am a positive person. I'm not a person that wallows in things. And so realistically, I'm getting the cancer treated. I'm having this next operation. Everything's going to be fine, but I'm still dizzy, and I'm probably even dizzier after all the anesthetic. And I think it was the biggest knock on the head. And so I thought there's got to be some other way. So I actually joined a group. I'm not sure they're around anymore. And I went to a couple of talks that they did in Melbourne, and one of the people got up and spoke about that they'd done this thing with you. So I thought, I'm going to look her up. So I came home and Googled you, and I followed you like really, really stalked you. I was just like looking you up everywhere. And I kept thinking, I should do that. That's me. That's what I need to do. I need to do that. And then eventually plucked up the courage to ask you, like, do you think that it's like my time because I've got all these other medical things going on? Is it a good idea to start now? And you were like, you'll know when it's ready, when you're ready. And I thought, yeah, I'm ready now. Like, I've found you, and just hearing your voice was like enough to make me feel, well, this girl knows what I'm talking about. Just talking. I listened to lots of your podcasts and things, and I was like, who knows what this is like? She's not saying, oh, yeah, you'll be okay. And I probably hadn't had that impression from anybody but the GP, but it was just the fact that I felt like I'd had so many different things, and I probably did feel like I was whinging now. And you didn't make it feel like that. You made it feel like there's actually something wrong and we can fix it. And I think that the whole even your Australian accent was just perfect to me. I just didn't want to have to, I didn't want to, I suppose I didn't want to, you know, get hooked into something that wasn't going to help me. I didn't want to go down another path that wasn't going to do anything, that was going to make me feel worse. And I just really wanted to stay positive, and I needed to just stop the dizziness, and then I could be clear about things. That's how I felt.
So when you entered into the Rocksteady and the Beautiful Balance program, so you did both the self-study online at home module learning,
Yep.
which I recommend everybody with these symptoms goes through that self-study process because it's so empowering.
Yeah.
But then you also recruited me on your team for a bit of private therapy.
Yep.
And face-to-face. What started to shift for you once you know, what were the changes? So you'd done so much, you'd seen all the right people, ENTs, neurologists, physios, etc.
Yep.
What was the difference? What was the change in yourself as you started to enter that, I suppose, the mental, emotional, spiritual aspects of healing?
Yeah, I guess it's whether it's, you don't notice it yourself, but other people started to notice.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. So I was very much determined that I was going to get this done. So I treated it like a job. I wasn't working at the time because I was waiting for this surgery. So I had plenty of time, and I was like, in the morning, get my computer out, do my thing, then go for a walk, and then come back and, you know, listen to another one. And so I was very much, you know, I had a little workbook and everything. I treated it like a job, and I felt that it was a really good focus for me as well,
Mm-hmm.
to give me clarity,
Mm-hmm.
because I was actually looking at my life rather than just at what everyone else was doing, and what was going on around me and what I needed to do for others. It was a big deal. It was a big shift in that. To the point, I can remember you one day saying to me, "So you haven't mentioned being dizzy." I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm not actually dizzy anymore. I've now got all these other things going on, but none of them were about being dizzy." So it was just such a relief. I can't really tell you what the change was, or what the one thing was. I think it was just being diligent and just working through it, and yeah, doing some funny little maneuvers and things like that.
I think if we, because I did look back through your notes because I was really interested in your case study. But I remember when we first met, your life, and the reason I'm sharing this is because so many listeners will relate to this, and I relate to it. Your life was very much focused on other people.
Yeah.
And we knew you had all these pipe dreams, and we're both writers, and we connected on that. And towards the end of your program and your sessions, you know, talking about writing your book was front and center. It wasn't dizziness. It wasn't your kids. It wasn't,
Yeah.
you know, grievances. It was like writing the book. Like, this is the project. This is where I want my energy and my desired feelings to be.
Yeah.
Right back at the beginning, it was a lot about caring for your children, you know, doing what your husband needs, or it was very much about other.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I remember we were just really slowly, subtly, incrementally bringing it back to Danielle and saying, what do I want?
Yeah.
What do I need? How
Yeah.
can I actually change my calendar and my priorities and my boundaries so I actually don't overlook where I am and what I need?
Yeah.
And you remember there were sessions when you'd be like, oh, this thing popped up and someone needed me to babysit. And I said, yes. Why did I say yes? Because I sacrificed my time so I could go and babysit for somebody else's child.
Yeah.
And so that whole process is really addictive,
Yeah.
you know, giving to others.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. I'm not suggesting we drop all of that. It's just the balance. It's like, what do I need to put back into my cup? How do I refuel my physical, mental, emotional, spiritual body? How do I create space so I can give?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. So I think because I made it like a little, you know, a little project, a little job that I did, I think I found that I actually really enjoyed it. And I actually really enjoyed saying, no, sorry, I've got to go and do this thing with Joey now, you know, like, and shut the door in the room and go in there and do it. I think I really enjoyed that time. And it's really funny because when you go through these sort of health issues, you have a lot of time with doctors, and you have a lot of, it's almost like you're making time for yourself, and yet you're not. you're
Mm.
actually making time for them. and so it's quite easy to become obsessed with appointments and to become, this is my role now. I need to see another person, tell my story yet again.
It's very symptom focused and fix me focused, i.e. I'm broken, somebody needs to fix me, which is not the recommended approach to recovery for those of you listening.
Yeah.
And when we shifted into actually I'm healthy and I'm whole and I'm going to spend time building my health and my wholeness, that's when suddenly we're no longer trying to get rid of symptoms, we're trying to write our book.
That's it. And you've got ideas flowing in and out of your head all of a sudden, because I used to carry around a list of what my symptoms were because I went to that many different doctors, and they'd say, okay, so now when did that start? And when did this? I don't even know any of those dates anymore. I don't have that list anymore.
Thank goodness.
List does not exist, because I'm sick and tired of worrying about all these things, and I don't need to focus on that. I've actually got so many other joys and opportunities, and I'm actually allowed to have time for me, which is a huge thing for me to say.
Mm-hmm.
So I have never been that person. I've always been the one that just did everything for everyone else, and not, even to the point of that great big holiday to Europe. It wasn't about me at all. but I went along because it's what everyone else wanted to do. And so you really, I don't know if it's a problem with my generation. I don't see it as much with my children. I don't think they will be like that. I think they will definitely be better equipped. But I think we were very much like, run, 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 try to keep up. You can do everything. You are super mum, and to the point that we did put ourselves last. And definitely even forgot about ourselves.
Yeah. There's definitely the generational aspects, but I do think this is an ongoing issue for all of us, and especially as women, when we enter that birthing and mothering phase of our lives, our hormones are actually telling us, cook for people, clean for people, pick them up. Like, we're all about other, and that's our hormonal balance is telling us to be all about other people.
Yes.
And as we hit menopause, that changes.
Yeah.
Then the hormones change, and suddenly it's like, I'm not cooking you dinner, do your own washing. So there are also just life stages.
That's right.
And that can be very confusing, especially if our identity is we help others. We cook for them, we clean for them, we're there for them, we drive them, we pick them up. And it's, every person, I believe, has a unique contribution, a natural gift. And often when we have space for that in our lives, and it could be at any age, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, etc., it's important that when we have that calling, that we listen to it, we honor it, and we follow through. And that can feel self-indulgent or selfish, but I really believe it's not, because it's giving back to the planet whatever our natural gift is.
Yeah.
And if we're always doing things for other people and putting everyone else first, it can really wear us down and numb us to that calling. So if you were to stop and think, because you said to me earlier before we hit record, I was that dizzy person, but I just kept on going. But I really felt that my body was telling me, Danielle, stop and listen. Hello, you've got to do something. And this was before the cancer diagnosis. So it felt like your body was kind of saying, check in with me, check in with me.
Yeah.
What do you think? So now, how are you feeling in your daily life now? And what do you think was the wisdom in this process?
Oh, definitely. I'm feeling fine. I'm just on top of everything. I've recovered from the cancer really well. The doctors are really pleased.
Bloody congratulations, woman. You're amazing.
I know. It's fantastic. And I have even, like, I feel in myself that I have come to a point where I'm allowed to take time and do my own things. I'm allowed to put myself first. I'm allowed to say no. So these are all big things. But I also feel that the whole time, the dizziness was telling me, would you stop and look at me? My body was saying to me, something is wrong, something is wrong. And all these little niggly things, well, they weren't niggly, I suppose, but like the autoimmune disorder and the problem with my spine and the cancer, all these things were always there. But I hadn't been taking any notice, and I had just been pushing through. And when you think about it now, it's, you're like a little whirling dervish. So no wonder you're dizzy. It's almost like it's your body going, right, you've been racing and racing and racing. Well, you need to stop. You need to stop, think, and listen. And listen to yourself.
And there's so many people out there who are going, yeah, but does it work? Like, do you still have vestibular migraine? Like, what's the point? I don't want to stop and listen to my body. I hate my body. I hate what I feel. I don't want to. What happens when you stop and listen? And I know it's a subtle process and it's over time. It's not necessarily a quick fix, although it can be quick. What happened for you when you started to stop and listen to Danielle? What was the outcome?
I had so many dreams and hopes that I just squashed. I
Yeah.
had a lot of issues even from childhood that I hadn't even realized. I had put myself, made myself the caretaker from a little girl.
Yeah.
I had been, I'm here to solve the problem, and I don't know why I had to be that person, but that's what I'd done. So once I decided not to be that person, it was really empowering because I had so much more space in my mind. I had so much more time on my hands. Um, I had like my creativity shot through the roof.
Mm. And I think
I had inner strength. Yeah.
And I think we also, in looking back through your notes, really early on, we identified there were a lot of shoulds in your life and a lot of shoulds in your kind of mental dialogue, which is apparently very common for anyone with migraine.
Yep.
This should, it's like this kind of constant pressure and urge that the brain is just being compressed.
Yeah.
And we worked on that quite early on. Have you noticed that's shifted, that now it's not necessarily the string of shoulds driving your daily decisions?
Yeah. Actually, I was trying to remember, I saw a quote about the shoulds at the Abbotsford Convent recently. I should go and, I think I took a photo, I should find it and send it to you, but it's quite funny about like, everyone's should this and should that. And it really was like, oh, that's Joey telling me that again. I walked around the corner and saw it. Because I definitely have done that. And I've definitely, and it wears you down because you're not doing what you want to do. You're not doing what your vocation really is. You're not following your own path.
Mm.
You're actually you're making other people make rules for you.
Yeah.
And they're not even probably doing that.
Yeah. And it can feel safe and calm, and it can feel easy to do what other people tell us to do, whether that's our partners, our children, our medical doctors, or teachers or employees. It can feel great to just do what we're told. And it's like, okay, I don't have to think.
Yeah.
But it does take our power away from us.
Yeah.
To step up and say, actually, this is what's right for me today. This is what I'm feeling I need. This is what my soul is calling for. This is the creative project I want to invest in.
Yeah.
The reality is if we're not obsessed over something that lights us up, we're probably going to be obsessed over our symptoms, because the space will be filled up with something.
Yes.
And so it's really important that we stop and realize, if I never write my book, the world never gets my book.
Yeah.
And if I'm constantly doing things for other people and I never put time into my project, whatever it might be,
Yep.
We're actually denying the world that contribution and that gift. And so it's not self-indulgence. I really believe it's a self-responsibility.
Yeah.
And when it comes to our health, our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health, we need to put ourselves very high up in importance in our own lives, because no one else will. It's our responsibility to feed ourselves, to believe in ourselves. As we make behavioral changes and as we change mental patterns and habits, and as we shift out of that internal pressure and shoulds and got to do this and got to be this, and we shift into, I'm going to be open today. I'm going to see what arises. I'm going to surrender. I'm going to take time off. I'm going to consciously lay down and do my sleep skills.
Yeah.
And as we start to shift into openness and we really connect into our heart, so many neural pathways change in our brain, because we're no longer locked in fight, flight, freeze, and should.
Yeah.
And I'd love you actually, if you can, and it might be too subtle, and it also might just be too long ago for you now that it's over a year, but can you potentially share what neuroplasticity felt like for you? Because some people will be like, I get it, I kind of theoretically get it, but what is it? Can you remember feeling that changing process in yourself?
Yeah, look, at first I didn't even want to say the word because I thought everyone would think I was just crazy. So actually, it's not crazy. It's actually just listening to yourself. It's actually just stopping stopping bad behaviors that you've built up around yourself, like that list of symptoms that you're focusing on all the time, or like that list of jobs that you have to get done. It's actually saying, okay, here's my day. It's a nice day. What I'll do is this. It's not about being in control. It's not about being on top of everything, but amazingly, you still get everything done because you've got this clarity to your thoughts and you have an understanding of yourself. And without all those negative impacts of the lists and the tasks and the things that you feel you should be doing for others, there's actually a lot more time and you are more productive. And you say, right, quickly going to zoom around and vacuum. That's done. Right, now I'm going to do what I want to do. Or I'm going to, race out, do the shopping. Right, that's done. Whoever wants to eat can find the food. And guess what? They can. If you give them the opportunity, they can actually do it. Yep, they'll make a mess, but they can also clean up. And so, I think it's all about actually changing your own attitude. It's nothing more scientific than that. It's just your own attitude changing.
It is a huge mindset shift. And I think if I was to put that into a little bit of neuroplasticity language, I feel like what Danielle is sharing with us is, instead of ignoring the neural pulses and signals happening within us, and there's millions and millions and millions of them 24/7. So instead of being like, well, regardless of what's happening inside of me, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm just going to go and cook that dinner for 10 people, and I'm going to deliver the meals, and I'm going to babysit that kid, and then I'm going to do all the washing, then I'm going to do the ironing, then I'm going to, and the next thing you know, it's midnight, and okay, well, I better crash in bed.
Yeah.
So it's this, we're not really thinking about what's happening in the body. We're ignoring those neural pulses. When we actually actively surrender to saying, okay, I'm going to try this neuroplasticity process, and I'm going to see if I can contribute to the way my body works. We pause, which often means we take stillness, like a body scan, which is available for free on my website. We pause and we listen, and we start noticing, okay, what neural pulses, what neural messages am I feeling? This could be a physical sensation, could be emotional, could be mental, such as thoughts, ideas, worries, values, motivations, inspirations. Could be spiritual, which is like, all right, am I connected to myself? Am I lost? Where am I? And we start to tune in the present moment and feel, what is my body telling me? What neural signals are going on here? Am I going to honor them and listen to them, or am I going to numb them and push through?
Yeah.
That is neuroplasticity. You actually listen and choose what to do with what you're feeling.
Yep.
It can seem overwhelming perhaps and scary at first, but I tell you it's not. It's a gentle process because it's always based on, what do I want to feel?
Yeah, it's not scary at all. And you're right, I was quite scared and skeptical and all those things, and, not willing to talk to anybody about it. I'm just doing a thing. I'm going in here. I wouldn't say a word. I wouldn't say neuroplasticity, but I do now.
Beautiful.
And I think, that's a big takeaway, is that it's not scary at all. It's very gentle. You're doing it at your own pace because you have to. You can't hurry it along.
Well, you're listening. So you don't, I don't tell clients what to do because that would just be externalizing.
Yeah.
But stop and listen and ask your body. Stop and listen, ask your body.
Yeah.
And truly listening is a skill. To, empty our mind and listen it's quite hard to do. And so once we become good listeners, the rest is easy, because the body just tells us. The body's like, oh, get me a glass of water, please. It can be that simple.
Yes.
Like, some people make jokes about that. Oh, Joey just said get a glass of water. No, but sometimes it is that simple. And if we surrender to the simplicity of the healing process and the slowing down and the single tasking and actually nurturing our body's needs, the healing is profound and rapid.
Yeah.
And I actually was talking to someone who works with vestibular clients and connected through VADA in America, the Vestibular Disorders Association. And they were just saying so many people are looking for complex solutions. Like, they actually want complex solutions. That everything's just a mess.
Yeah.
And so dropping down into neuroplasticity really forces us to surrender to the simple.
Yeah.
And it can be like, this friend is toxic. In fact, it's not even a friend. Why am I spending time with that person?
Exactly.
Just instilling me with doubt and worry and anxiety. So he's like, sometimes we've got to cut ties with relationships that are not feeding us, not nurturing us, and we have to seek new soul friends.
Yep.
people that we can connect to without judgment. So these changes can be quite simple, very profound, and certainly not easy.
Yeah, and that's true, because a lot of the time people around you don't understand what you're doing because you're being very different.
And they can't understand.
Yeah, I sort of took that as, at first I took that as like, oh, here we go. I'm trying to do something and now, this is the wrong thing. I took offense at first. And I was like, oh, I'll have to just, go back to my old ways. I'll have to do this for them or do that. Or after a while I was thinking, no, why do I have to? I know that you seem to be an adult as well, or like you could probably do that for yourself, and yeah, I've done my bit for you, or I've told you I'll get to that, or whatever it is, and that person just doesn't accept that because you're normally jump up and do everything. So I took that as a bit of negativity at first, but after a while I didn't, and that's a big motivation for me too, because any other time, I think when you're not well, you see things, you can sort of dwell on the bad things.
Yeah.
But because I was getting better, and it's interesting that I was actually still sick at the time. So, but I was getting better in myself, in my mind. I was getting better and better, and I've had comments from oncologists and surgeons. They just can't believe my attitude. I think it was actually a really good time to do it. So, I think actually it's been an attitude adjustment all across. And I think it turned out to be a really great time that happened.
And isn't it beautiful that you actually listen to yourself?
Yeah. And a good time for me to be doing that. Yeah, I needed to do that for sure. And I've seen quite a few people since who've taken different paths but ended up with the same outcome. And I can recognize it in them. I can recognize that they're just listening to themselves. I can now spot it in others. Oh, that's what you're doing. Like, you don't know it, but you're doing neuroplasticity. You're following along those lines. But yeah, I still, I think it is an attitude adjustment, and I think it's something that we all need to do, whether or not we are dizzy.
Oh, absolutely. And I think pretty much all successful people are doing this, because at the end of the day, the formula is identifying, what do I feel right now?
Yeah.
What do I want to feel right now? What do I desire in my heart to feel? And how do I close the gap between what I actually feel, which might be, let's say, I feel rejected, I feel hopeless, I feel isolated, I feel inadequate, but I want to feel calm, centered, courageous, and inspired. How do I go from rejected to inspired? How do I go from isolated to connected? How do I go from anxious to calm? That's neuroplasticity, because we're learning that for ourselves, and it's not a prescription. The way I do it might be 100% different to how Danielle does it.
Yeah.
I know me and Danielle knows her, so we're doing it our way.
Yeah.
And that's the rock steady process.
Yeah. Yeah. And it works. And it's not a simple fix. It's a lifelong thing. So just recently I've been having some trouble sleeping. So I've gone back to do a few things, and I've got those resources there. They're there for me. I can use them anytime. And, I can fix my sleeping problems, which is probably due to jet lag. But yeah, so I can, I know what to do now. I don't have to just waddle along and suffer. I can just make the changes I need to make.
So I've got a question for you. For people out there with vestibular migraine diagnoses who may have been told by people there's nothing much we can do, try this, try that, where we don't know what else to offer you, what encouragement or guidance or pearls of wisdom would you have from your perspective in what this diagnosis means and what are possibilities for them?
The diagnosis is quite scary, I think, when you first get it. But for me, it was a pleasure to actually have a name. I felt like, okay, there is something. I'm not making this up. At first, I felt like that for a long time. But I think that the answer is not in medication. The medications might help you get started.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Relief, but it's not in that way. I think all the medical professionals are going about it the right way and giving you that here's your label, here's what you have, which is a big relief. But then you need to actually look inside yourself and find out, what is your body trying to tell you? Why is this happening? There is a reason, and it's deep within you. It's not something, yes, you may have had, a car accident that set it off, or there may have been some particular thing that set it off, but it won't be something that you can't overcome. That the future's bright, and you have yourself to thank for that. You can do it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not linear. Like, I've had people who have been going through this stuff, and they're like, look, 35 years ago I had an abortion or a miscarriage, and all of this old emotion is coming up that was never processed, never held, never supported. And they're like, as if that can't be to do with it. And it's like, it doesn't matter. Just listen to the body. Maybe your body is now ready to process that grievance. So it's not always linear.
No.
Not like I had a car accident and the next day I was dizzy, which is very much like A equals B.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really, really old childhood stuff coming up that we haven't been ready and mature to process. And suddenly the body's like, I can't hold on to this anymore. It's too much. And so it's a really gentle process of getting to know ourselves and getting to know our inner workings and having a bit of a spring clean and really, really honoring what's real for us instead of pushing through, ignoring and going, oh, no way, I'm over that. That was 30 years ago, right?
Yeah. And until you do that, you won't know all the possibilities that life holds as well, because you are holding all that inside. And it is
exhausting.
Like,
Been there, done that.
Yeah, and it is a little bit of a it's a pressure within you that needs to be released. It may be something really simple, and it may have been, just an issue from childhood, like it was with me. And I have been carrying that around like a sack of potatoes. I need to drop that sack and just get on with it.
Well, also nurture it.
Yeah.
Nurture, because it's not necessarily something we can talk about or talk therapy through. We have to actually meet it, and it's a very experiential therapy, because neuroplasticity is based on feeling. You don't talk about it, you feel it.
Yes. Yeah. And you can feel the difference in yourself for sure. And the day that Joey said to me, oh, you haven't talked about being dizzy, I was like, oh yeah, I'm not actually dizzy anymore. I hadn't even noticed. And that to me was, I would not have believed it. Someone said that. I didn't notice I wasn't dizzy. I was dizzy all the time. So how could I not notice? But I really didn't.
Yeah. And that's perfect. And when we stop focusing on it, analyzing it, monitoring it, suddenly there's space for the brain to let it go. And then you're like, oh, well, I haven't even thought about it. Haven't even had it. What?
Yeah.
And so it's about really creating that new space for new focuses, new projects, new challenges. And you were busy. And I guess because you were treating it like a career, you were really putting space and time. So you had so many new neurons firing in so many aspects of your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, that there was no space for the symptoms. You hadn't factored them into your daily practice.
There wasn't a spot, now be dizzy. There wasn't any. But it just really hit me like a brick when you said that. I haven't been dizzy. Oh yeah, I've been dizzy. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing and being vulnerable and being courageous. I hope there's a lot of people out there who listen and resonate with this, and I'm really sure there will be. Vestibular migraine can be a very invisible, very isolating and very scary diagnosis, but it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
I have personally seen many people recover very well. So there is hope, and it's a very personal process. And the good news is if you have vestibular migraine, you're actually in control. This is not something an external person can come and do for you. You're in the driver's seat. You do it at your own pace, with wholeheartedness and with gentleness, because there's honestly no other way. You cannot push through it.
Yeah.
And the forceful kind of, I need to overcome this and get through this, doesn't work. Like, we have to surrender, and there's a real inherent gentleness in the recovery, which I personally find really moving, really, really moving.
Yeah. No, it is. And it's a bit of a shock to be nice to yourself, be listening to yourself. It's actually, and it's not negatively listening to yourself, it's positively listening. So like, oh, I need to be doing this. I should have put the washing out. I should have, I should have rang that person. It's not like that. It's the I will do this, I will do that. I can see that ahead of me is this, and I can feel the energy within, and it's a big change.
Mm. And I think the other big change for me was feeling prepared, feeling that I understood myself. I had all these tools and tricks and strategies.
Yeah.
And I felt like pretty much no matter what happened in the day, I could handle it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't about getting rid of it or never feeling anything ever again, which, by the way, I don't. I am normal and I don't have any vertigo or tinnitus anymore. But it was like, well, if it happens, it's no big deal because I know exactly what I can do about it.
Yeah.
So there was no freak out, no apprehension, no anticipation.
Yeah.
It just seriously didn't matter anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. And actually living with that anticipation is so negative.
Mm.
Like, oh, I'll go to this dinner and it'll be really loud, and then I'll get dizzy, and then I won't be able to focus.
We talk ourselves into it.
You build it into your world, and I definitely was doing that to the point where I'd say, oh, I won't go to the dinner.
Mm.
I built it up that this is what's going to happen. So I'll just avoid it altogether.
I just loved it that by the end of our sessions, your home practices were like, oh, I'm going to go to this book launch and I'm going to speak to writing colleagues and I'm going to give out my business cards and meet people. And it's like fabulous.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
look, congratulations for coming so far and overcoming so much and actually having comorbidities or multiple medical issues happening at once.
Yeah.
Is not uncommon, and I'm sure there's plenty of listeners out there who may have a vestibular condition but also a rheumatoid arthritis or a cancer or something else going on, and that's not fun and it can really drag people down. So thank you for being a light and an inspiration, and I totally agree with your doctors. I think your mindset is beautiful and it's a credit to you, and I'm just so thrilled I could see you in this process.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Joey.
It's my absolute pleasure. So it's a bye for now. If you would like support, please visit seekingbalance.com.au. If you have any type of dizziness, vertigo, or tinnitus, doesn't matter actually what your diagnosis is. The process of healing is all about you as a person and your wholeness. So get yourself medical clearance. The doctors are wonderful and they'll support you in that process. And when you're ready, if you want to engage in healing and self-study, check out Rocksteady at seekingbalance.com.au. My name's Joey Remenyi, and it's a bye for now.